The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on July 16th, 2024.
It's time now for Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And now, here's your host, the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pam Toompop. Good morning, Pam.
Hey, good morning, Gary. How are you this morning?
I am doing great.
I'm glad to hear it. Well, it's a beautiful morning up country, although I haven't heard the latest on the wildfires. Have you?
No, I just got into the office like 5 minutes before the show here, so I haven't had a chance to look.
Okay, well, you know, we're having spots rear up every now and then, so I'll be checking after, but, you know, we're very grateful for the work that Maui County is doing, and to have Lieutenant Governor Luke involved again with the wildfires to help us out during this time. Again, this is that season, and the winds are wild and crazy. So please, everybody, put together your hurricane kit, be on alert, sign up for alerts so that if anything occurs in your neighborhood, you are protected and know if it, you know, what's going on and if you need to evacuate. There's a lot going on, and we're seeing very unusual winds. So please stay safe and make sure that you're protecting yourself and your household. This morning, we are going to have a great conversation with Speaker of the House, Scott Saiki, and talk a little bit about some of the key priorities that he was working through this legislative session that are near and dear to his heart and ours. And we're also going to talk with MacDonald of Proservice as we continue to discuss employment opportunities and challenges right now. But first, we are going to begin with Speaker of the House, Scott Saiki. He currently serves as the representative for House District 25, which includes the areas of Ala Moana and Kaka'ako. Representative Saiki, Speaker Saiki was born in Honolulu and grew up in Kailua, Hawaii. He earned a BA in political science from the University of Hawaii at Manoa and his JD from the University of Hawaii at Manoa's William S. Richardson School of Law. During his time at UH, the Speaker won his first election to serve on the Campus Center Board for the University of Hawaii. In 1994, he was first elected to the House of Representatives, and since the 2018 legislative session, Scott Saiki has taken on the leadership role as Speaker of the House. Prior to being elected House Speaker by his peers, Representative Saiki served as the House Majority Leader from 2013 to 2017, where he passed legislation to legalize same-sex marriage in 2013, passed a first-in-nation law in 2015 that requires Hawaii utilities to generate 100% of their electric sales from renewable energy source by 2045, and introduced legislation in 2019 that created Hawaii's statewide system of mail-in voting. In August 2019, Speaker Saiki was named President-elect of the National Conference of State Legislators, a bipartisan organization surveying the nation's 7,383 state lawmakers and legislative staff. And in addition to his role as Speaker, he is also a practicing attorney specializing in disability law. And during COVID-19, he led the House Select Committee on Economic Recovery and Finances. I don't know, how many people did we have on that committee? It was a lot.
There were, I think, 34 members or 35 members.
34, 35 members. A lot of interest, statewide committee, leaders from across the state, really engaging and meeting frequently because things were unfolding so rapidly on creating solutions that led to so many outstanding solutions and phenomenal healthcare services that really kept COVID-19 down in the state of Hawaii. So, you know, I having gotten to serve on that and getting to know you through the legislature as well, just really want to thank you for your tremendous leadership. And while you were doing that, I remember at the opening of the legislative session, not this year, but last year, I remember at the same time you had created a committee to also address and work on and unite people on the issue of the telescopes at Mauna Kea that I had no idea you were working on. But you always have so many irons in the fire, helping and looking at solutions and uniting people.
Well, and Pam, you were part of our COVID committee a few years ago, and I think you represented Maui and the Maui business community really well. So I want to thank you for your participation and for attending all of those meetings that we held for almost 1 year.
It was my great honor and pleasure. It was one of those things that you just clear your calendar for, and we're trying to do that again now with so many other committees that are happening as a result of the wildfires. But that was one of the most extraordinary efforts because of the way everybody united together, and they came together around a common cause. And there were tough issues to look at, but it worked out. It worked out phenomenally well, and I really think that again, your great leadership and the service that everybody just committed to is tremendous.
Yeah, the same thing happened, I think, with this recent fire in Maui. So, again, thanks to the community and to the county and state officials who responded in a really cohesive manner, which I think made a big difference.
Yes. Yeah. That's very true. And we right now with the current fire at Haleakala, it's very different, and it's being watched at such a high level right now that everybody's on it. I mean, we've got full force ready, and just deeply appreciative. And I think we're just all learning new lessons about climate change. And of course, with our hearts go out to Hawai'i as well, because they're dealing with a fire as well.
Right.
And I haven't been briefed on that update, but yeah, very, very challenging times as we start to learn. Okay, how do we prepare for this? How do we continue to green our islands and put in more fire breaks? And this is the time when more of those efforts are needed. They also come at a time when insurance is going through the roof, and I know you worked really hard on property insurance efforts this session. Can you talk about what's happening in that arena and the efforts that you were looking at to make a difference to help the people of Hawaii be able to continue to have available insurance and be able to afford it?
Sure, Pam. So, in November, some of the industry and housing advocates came to see me and said, "Hey, Scott, there's a problem going on with property insurance right now." So, we took a look at it and we saw that at that time it was affecting condominium buildings, the high-rise buildings. And I know that this is very frustrating for condo owners as well as others who are seeing these exponential increases in their property insurance. And what's happening is this is really the effect of natural disaster risk and climate change. And it's not unique to Hawaii. It's happening throughout the United States, where you see insurance rates, especially on the hurricane side, just spiking and driving up the cost and availability of insurance. We were told that this would start to impact other kinds of residences, and that's exactly what happened, because now we're seeing that wooden townhomes are seeing spikes in insurance, and then single-family homes that are in fire zones. So, I worked very closely over the session with Senator Jarrett Gil Kalole from the Senate Commerce. He's the chair of the Senate Commerce Committee. And we did have a proposal that we worked on during the session. Unfortunately, some in the Senate wanted to study the issue instead of enacting legislation. But basically what our proposal did was to have the state loan some funds to two existing insurance funds, the Hurricane Relief Fund and the Property Insurance Association. Those two funds were created like 40 years ago in response to Hurricane Iniki and the killer whale eruption that disrupted the property insurance market. So our proposal was to basically provide a loan to these two funds so that they could turn around, purchase insurance, and then sell that insurance to condo buildings and others who were in need of more insurance. It wasn't a 100% solution, but it would have provided a layer of insurance for people for those who were having a difficult time finding different sources of insurance. So, unfortunately, that bill did not make it through the session, but a couple of weeks ago, the governor formed a task force, an informal task force. I'm a member of that. Senator Kolo is a member. The insurance commissioner is a member, and we have also industry leaders who are on this working group. And we have been asked to propose some short-term measures that the governor can take over the summer, and then to propose legislation for this session that begins in January. So we're working on a proposal now to see whether the governor can basically use his administrative authority to implement the proposals that were in our legislation that died during the regular session. So that was the capitalization of the two funds, and then allowing them to sell insurance to condo buildings and others that need more coverage. So we'll be hopefully finalizing that proposal this week. And then sending it up to the governor, and we'll work with him and urge him to take administrative action.
So will that be published for the public to read in advance so that they can ring in and support?
Yeah, we'll be right now we don't have a formal proposal, but we'll be posting it and making it available through the media. So we'll sending out a press release. And probably have something posted on our Capitol website, the Hawaii Legislature website.
That would be great because, I know, especially when, the governor's looking at his executive powers, sometimes people question things, but I really feel that, one, I'm glad that he's reviving this and saying, look, that was a really great proposal. It didn't pass, but it's desperately needed. And I'm glad that he's continuing to look at it and created a task force. And for those listening, I think that, if you're not up on this issue, you continue to listen and learn, because this is something that, we can help the governor with and help our state with by supporting this. And again, as he's looking at a short-term measure right now with a long-term bill at next year's legislative session, then we can continue to support the efforts as they move forward next legislative session as well. But, it's helpful for our elected officials to know that the public is supporting the things they're doing. And this is one of those gaps that is going to have to be filled. I mean, we are hearing rising insurance costs left and right, and some people just flat out not being able to get any insurance, hurricane insurance right now.
We're really worried about the impact, not just on, the direct impact, but there's ramifications to this because, for example, people who live in a condo and are paying maintenance fees are seeing increases in their maintenance fees. People who may be unable to pay their maintenance fee at some point, and if so, then that leads to default, and then that leads to foreclosure. So there's, and then you have a situation where if you are in a condo building that is underinsured, then you have lending problems with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the banks, the lenders. You can't get mortgages, so you can't sell your unit to someone who needs a mortgage in order to purchase it. So there's a lot of issues that stem from this property insurance increase. And again, it's a national issue. I was just reading an article about a little town in Iowa that is in the Tornado Alley in Iowa, the direct path of Tornado Alley. And so there's no insurance in this town available to them. The insurers all pulled out. So it's just happening everywhere from coast to coast and in between.
And I think it's just gonna get worse. We're working with the SBA and doing some work to try and help some people who are stuck in the SBA portal process get loans looked at and evaluated. But what we're watching is, state by state, Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, there's been so much devastation and destruction. Just recently, I mean, first we've had tornadoes and now we've got the hurricane season again, and just terrible devastation and destruction that's hitting our nation over and over again.
So even though our property insurance bill didn't make it through the session, we did approve another bill, and it's called the C-PACER bill. It's the letter C and PACER, C-PACER. And basically what this bill does, it's really, really important for people, especially those who live in condo type associations. This bill will provide a financing mechanism for associations to finance improvements to their buildings, and the loan will be through a private lender, and the loan will be amortized. It'll be repaid over time by the unit owners through an assessment on the unit owner's property tax. So it's paid over time. So there's a couple of advantages to this. One is that it avoids a large front-end assessment on unit owners.
Yeah.
And then second, if a unit owner sells their unit, then the new unit owner takes over that obligation. So it's a pay-as-you-go system for the unit owner. And the types of repairs that that are going to be covered are things like, for water pipes, for example, fire sprinklers, environmental kind of remediation, energy, lighting, plumbing, hardening of the building. So this is a really, really important program that condo associations should really take a look at. It went into effect on July 1st. And the website is, for more info, go to gems.hawaii.gov. Gems.hawaii.gov is GEMS. And they already have like pre-approved lenders on that site that you can look at. But I know that office is really busy right now. A lot of condos are calling for help.
I can only imagine. Well, when I was in my 20s, I had bought a condominium unit in a place called Harbor Lights, which is in Kahului, Maui, and we had first of all, even back then, housing was such a challenge that many families, had more people in their units than we were supposed to, and so we had huge water and sewer issues. And I remember our condo, I think we got like hit with a $25,000 assessment back then. I can't remember. They allowed some sort of financing. I don't know how they did it back then. But also, because of the way the unit was built, it was an all concrete building, the way they had to replace the water and sewer lines was to put them overhead in the hallways.
Mm.
And, we have to remember these buildings, we have a lot of aging buildings. And as we look at some of these short-term rental issues that we're addressing here and converting some of the condominiums, looking at this proposal to convert some of the condominiums to long-term rentals, we're hearing significant HOA underfunded liabilities for all the things you just mentioned: water, sewer, electrical improvements, hardening of the building. And then for those near the shoreline, that hardening is going to be really important as well. And so this is a great. I love that it's under GEMS, GEMS.hawaii.gov, because this is a gem. This is a jewel too.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
And condo boards are gonna have to really step up to the plate now and just learn about what's happening, and then see what their options are, because they're going to be responsible for repair and maintenance of their buildings. So they have to make some decisions. I mean, it's not going to be cheap, right? It's not going to be cheap. But especially the buildings that are, as you mentioned, the ones that are like 30, 40 years old in Hawaii, I mean, those are the ones that really are going to require a lot of attention if they haven't been repaired, over the years or maintained over the years. So everybody just has to be super vigilant about this going forward.
Yeah. I mean, and again, not unique to Hawaii. This is happening, all across the nation as well. But we have some unique conditions in Hawaii. We have a lot of shoreline properties. Um, so, and again, this has to happen. And people also talk about, that condo boards are elected by by the ownership,
Yeah.
but owners, this is time to, ask the board to really get engaged, tell them that, that this is important to you. The financing option is awesome because this is another arena where if people get hit with the full assessment, it can require them to sell or to foreclose,
Right.
and you'll have issues selling.
I was just talking with a constituent the other week, and he told me that his mother lives in a high-rise building in a different area on Oahu, and their building a couple months ago made an assessment on all the owners for some water repairs, water pipe repairs, and the assessment was, I think, $40,000, and his mother is 92 years old.
Right.
So I told him,
Yeah.
no, you folks should go take that building should go take a look at the C-Pacer program and see if it isn't too late to use C-Pacer, because, then you can avoid that assessment, that front-end assessment.
Yes.
For a 92-year-old, for a 92-year-old condo owner, right?
Yeah. I mean, no, we forget. We have to really look at the population, who's living in these units, who can afford these big hits, and what are the hits, and again, a lot of the condos have through the HOA, they have a reserve. But what we're hearing from the construction industry is the reserve studies and the work that needs to be done is underfunded. There's some money, but and we're hearing in many cases, not all, of course, but in many cases by a lot. So, we're in this tight economy, when many businesses are still hurting, when our visitors haven't fully come back, when we're dealing with so many other challenges and climate change and a lot of things happening across our state. This is a time when, we really have to be mindful and be planning forward appropriately and be looking at sustainable solutions. And I think it's awesome that you got this passed. It's awesome that they can spread those payments, because without that tool, the situation would be devastating for many people. So please, if you live in a condo and talk to your board, go look up the C-Pacer bill, understand it, educate and inform people, because I've lived through it in my 20s when I had very little money. It's tough when you get a big assessment, and
Absolutely.
It's tough, and for people on both ends of the spectrum, younger and older, it's going to be really tough. So
Absolutely.
We want to make sure that you're preparing ahead. There were also great changes to income tax. Can you share a little bit about the work that was done in that area?
Sure. So the legislature really honed in this past year on cost of living, because we know that people work so hard and just seem sometimes to never get ahead. So we looked at the state income tax code, which had not been modified for decades. So what was happening was people, in my assessment, were overpaying taxes because we weren't accounting for inflation and increases in wages, increase in minimum wage. So people were stuck in these brackets. So we made some changes. We will go from the second highest income tax burden to the fourth lowest income tax in the United States once this change is fully implemented. It's going to be a 7-year phase-in beginning on January 1st, 2025. So beginning on January 1st, people are going to start seeing some changes in their in their paychecks. There's gonna be more take-home pay, and again, it's a phase-in over 7 years. But I'll just
Yeah.
give you an example of the change. For a household with income between 75 and $100,000, the effective tax rate in 2019, the effective tax rate, which meaning the amount that people are actually paying when you factor in credits and deductions, was
Yeah.
6.6%. In 2031, when this is fully implemented, it will decrease to 3.4%. So it's a
Wow, that's big.
2.2% decrease. And this is because we're going to not just adjust the brackets, but we're also going to increase the standard deduction. So the current deduction, is 2,200 for an individual, 4,400 for joint filing. And it will increase to $12,000 for an individual, $24,000 for a joint filers. It's a six-fold increase in the standard deduction. And Pam, what's really important to remember is that those people who qualify for other kinds of credits, like the earned income tax credit, food credit, dependent care credit, they're going to continue to be eligible for these credits. So as long as they're
Yeah.
qualified, they're going to see those credits on top of the income tax and standard deduction adjustments. So I think we're going to have a bunch of people at the end of the day who aren't going to be paying state income tax, and in fact, they may see refunds. They may be receiving refunds at the end of the tax year.
Well, I again just want to applaud that work. We know that Hawaii has a high cost of living, and one of the things I said each legislative session is yes, businesses are working to pay more, but a lot of the inputs that lead to that high cost of living, part of it's because we live in an island state, so shipping is more and other costs are higher. But also part of it is policy within our state and things that we can control that raise our costs, that building more housing to lower our housing costs and doing some other things would really help. And we're going to talk about that next. But
can I also mention a couple more tax
yes, please go ahead.
changes. So the next one is that we eliminated the GET for doctors, for medical professionals who provide Medicaid, Medicare, and TRICARE services. So that is particularly going to help medical professionals on neighbor islands and in rural areas.
Yeah.
We also approved a bill on pass-through taxation. This is Senate Bill 2725, which will allow pass-through entities to avoid the federal $10,000 limit on SALT deductions. So there's gonna be a savings there as well through the pass-through for pass-through entities.
I mean, all of this is really huge, and it's as you said, the tax code and hasn't been looked at for a long time, and the medical reimbursement has been something that's huge because our doctors in Hawaii aren't getting the same level that they could get if they were serving on the mainland. All of this work is tremendous because, especially, I'm just so blown away by this income tax credit because this is really going to help, and some of our inputs right now, like housing, until we create more, we are already predicting that the median home price will just continue to escalate due to market demand, leading to higher and higher median home prices, which are unaffordable for our local residents. So everything we do as we chip away at some of these long-standing problems is making such a huge difference. So let's talk about housing. Oh, go ahead.
So as part of our focus on cost of living, we also approved a couple of housing bills that, like the income tax bill, I feel are pretty historic and unprecedented.
Yeah.
Because, in the past, the legislature has tried to address housing primarily by funding infrastructure or funding specific kinds of developments, the construction costs. But this year we took a different tack, and we looked at zoning, what is happening with zoning and permitting, because as you know, some of the counties have issues with that process. So we basically did a couple of things. The first bill sets a state policy that people can build up to 2 accessory dwelling units, ADUs, on their residential properties.
Yeah.
Subject to county standards. The counties will still set the standards for these kinds of developments. The counties are going to approve and deny the permits for these developments. But we wanted to set a clear policy that people can build these kinds of units on their residential properties. The purpose here is to increase housing inventory, housing capacity. The second bill that we approved is another zoning bill, which will allow for adaptive reuse. So basically, it'll allow for residential development in commercial zoned areas. And the specific, purpose here was to try to see if we can build more housing on the second floor of 2-story commercial buildings in commercial areas. So both of these bills are designed to take on the zoning issue. We want to streamline zoning, make it clear what is permissible throughout the state, and to increase inventory. Because you're right, in order for us to bring the cost of housing down, we have to create more inventory. We just have to create more inventory. And ADUs, and I think some of these commercial developments are going to be smaller units. Yeah. I'm talking about monster homes. They're going to be smaller units. Yeah. And I think that we have the potential to really increase capacity.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm excited. I was very excited, but we ring in on every housing go, and multiple times. The Maui Chamber of Commerce says housing is our number one priority. Everybody thinks, of course, it's economic, a strong economic environment, which it always is. But we can't have a strong economic environment, and we can't have economic diversity that we all seek without housing. So we have to take care of our families first.
I want to give credit to our housing chairs, Representative Luke Evelyn, who's from Maui, is our housing chair, and then Senator Stanley Chang was the Senate housing chair. And also to give credit on the tax bills, Representative Kao Yamashita worked really hard and helped to shepherd through the tax reform changes. So I want to just give credit to all of the legislators who worked so hard on these measures.
I really appreciate that, and I want to note for those who don't know you that you always do. You are always very gracious in making sure that you always recognize those who were leading the way and helping and working with you, and I really appreciate that. Well,
Senator Dela Cruz in the Senate will also work with Rep. Yamashita on the tax bills.
Donovan's been doing a great job as well. Thank you for sharing that. And of course, we're always very proud of our Maui legislators who've been working so hard on all of these issues. It's critical to us, and sometimes Maui and the median home price leads the way it has the highest in the state. It fluctuates from time to time, but. And depending on the types of units. But these are really critically important to us. And one of the things that has happened, which we have on a county level with our county council, advocated for, apartments and some other types of housing in commercial areas. Some of that didn't go through. They didn't approve it due to concerns over lighting at night or noises at night, which in the areas we were talking about don't really happen. But what was interesting was what's happening with our Minatoya bill that protected a lot of the condominium units that is being revisited these days is the call for apartments. To hear people say we would be okay living in apartments. And for a lot of younger people, or at least for me, apartments was one of my ways to move out from my parents' home and be able to afford something less expensive. And we really don't have a lot of apartments on Maui. So to hear that you've worked on the zoning for commercial areas where we can see some of that, as well as the ADU units. I know a lot of people are excited about that for, again, extended housing for families on their property, or to be able to make rentals available to the public who are desperately in need. And a lot of people, especially with the wildfires, feel that that is a wonderful tool that they're anxious to take advantage of, because we just see such great need, and we're trying to keep local residents here without them having to move off island.
Yeah, and the legislature set the state policy, the state standards through these two housing bills. At this point, it's now up to the counties to implement them, to enact the ordinances that are going to set standards for this kind of development. So it's really, really important that the public weigh in at the county level, at the county council level, to make sure that they follow through on this. I think that Kauai and the Big Island are already kind of underway with this. I'm not so sure about Oahu and the Maui Council. I think that they still need to take this up.
They have been taking up ADU units and making some changes to ADU units, even as the bill was going through the session. They've been doing some things there to allow ADU units and going back and forth. So this bill will be a tool that expands that, because it allows two. So we will be there, front and center. But thank you for also encouraging our community. We want our community to talk to the county council to say these are important tools, and how can we actively leverage them right now, because housing is so desperately needed. Speaker, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate having you on. I know how busy your schedule is. I do want to mention that you are running for re-election, and we're thrilled to hear it. We don't get to ring in on that vote, unfortunately, from Maui, but we treasure you and appreciate all your work.
Thanks, Pam, for inviting me today. Thank you very much, and Gary too. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
It's our great pleasure. Thank you. And
we also have good discussions
always
on your show.
What? Pardon me?
We also have good conversations on your show.
We do. I always love our conversations, and we will continue to bring you back on, because you're a treasure trove of knowledge, and always working very hard for the people of Hawaii. So thank you so much for your tremendous service.
Thanks, Pam. Take care.
You too. Aloha.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye. Always so great to have Speaker Saiki on. I do want to mention, as he is running for re-election, although we don't get to vote on that, this message is an in-kind contribution towards his campaign, valued at $175 and paid for by the Chamber of Maui Political Action Committee. So we could have him on, even though this wasn't really a campaign message. It was an update to hear about the legislative session. With the timing of elections, it's important for people to understand and know that there is a process during election time for announcements, and so we just wanted to make sure people were aware how this announcement was paid for to meet the FCC guidelines. And next we are going to hear from Mary Ann MacDonald of Proservice Hawaii. This is a time when everybody is scrambling to find employees and keep employees and train employees maybe in their line of work, because sometimes employees right now are moving from one career to another, and to hear the kinds of services that Proservice can do to both help businesses and their employees move forward and help save time and resources. So we're really excited that Mary Ann is going to join us. I want to tell you a little bit about Mary Ann. So Mary Ann MacDonald is a Maui-based strategic account manager at Proservice Hawaii. She partners closely with Proservice clients to develop solutions to complicated business challenges that affect Maui businesses and provide them with resources and expertise on HR, training, development, and more. Gary, do we have Marianne on?
Yes, she's on.
Oh, wonderful. Aloha and welcome, Marianne.
Aloha, Pam. Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I am excellent. How are you this morning?
I'm enjoying a nice, bright, sunny, upcountry morning.
Oh, me too.
Wonderful.
I love it. What part of upcountry do you live in?
I am actually in Makua, Pukalani. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Pukalani, just on the golf course.
Oh, well, we're neighbors then. Of course, we all are here in Maui, aren't we? Well, lovely to meet you and talk to you.
So great to have you on the show this morning. Well, I know that Proservice Hawaii has been doing so much to help employers, and I was wondering if you share a little bit about some of the biggest HR challenges that you're finding your client partners are facing right now.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm not sure if we had a chance to mention it all, but really my role at Proservice here is really, I have the pleasure and honor really every day to work alongside our local business owners, consulting with them on business matters, challenges, just trying to help them, really as Proservice's mission is to succeed. It's not easy doing business in Hawaii. Proservice has been here for, I want to say, over 30 years doing business in the state, and with over 3,000 clients. I think right now, many of those in Maui. We've been here, along the way, and of course there are always challenges, especially doing business in the middle of the Pacific. But more recently, there really have been some unprecedented times, and I think any of us who have lived in Maui for any amount of time, are really look back. I think the last 5 years, it's been really unprecedented challenges. We started with 2020, and no one really ever imagined how that would impact us all, our families, our businesses, and then of course for us here, closer to home, we had a tragedy last summer that really changed many of us for, in many ways. And so this has really created an environment for our businesses where it's really meant a pivot after pivot. And as much as I have such admiration for the resiliency of our local businesses, I think with everything that they've faced, they've done amazingly well. That back to your original question, there are, I think, several challenges that I'm seeing right now, and a lot of that is because the recovery following what happened last summer has really been a lot slower than really all of us expected, I think. And it's not, Maui is probably one of the most tourism-dependent islands, and no matter what business or industry that you're in right now, you're feeling these impacts. And regarding HR, hiring and retaining employees was already challenging before what happened last summer. And now that really has emerged as the number one thing I'm hearing every day in my conversations with my clients is how do I find people? How do I keep the people I need to keep, my best people? And we have this housing issue in the background that's just exacerbating that. So you take that in combination with, the labor costs that we've seen going up, input costs going up. It's really those two things combined have created the challenges that I'm dealing with our local businesses right now on a day-to-day basis.
And I know that, one of the things that you shared that you do and help them with is identify strategies for your partners. So what are some of the strategies that you're sharing with them to attract and retain employees?
And the first thing I try and do is the strategy is really just having the conversations. The more we know about what our business partners are going through, what their personal situations are, what their unique business situations are, the more we can tailor those strategies to that. I think from an organizational standpoint, Proservice really has come to the table with what I feel like are I was going to summarize them, I would say are really about market agility and trying to lead with empathy. Through, say, for example, we were talking earlier about the challenges of the pandemic. And, that's when I saw what Proservice was doing to support our local business partners, that's really what drew me to work at Proservice, like an organization that really, when such uncertainty prevailed in those early days and no one knew what to do, I was really proud to see Proservice double down as an organization and really invest in supporting our clients. And, whether it was you were a client or not, to be honest, we were providing guidance and support on things like very complicated programs through that time regarding PPP or ERC. We helped our clients regarding ERC, the Employee Retention Credit. I think we get back almost $120 million in aggregate from that program. So, we really tried to respond in that moment to support our partners in really important ways to help them survive. And more recently, I think back to last summer, and right away when everything happened, I know it's still fresh for so many of us, but we made sure to contact every single Maui client, whether it be by phone or email, just to make sure they were okay and to see what we could do to help. And then we started looking at, okay, what are the solutions and what are the things that we can come to the table with that can help people get through. And so if we fast forward to right now, and how do we really bring strategies and resources to our clients that help them deal with the realities of right now? It's things like, if we're thinking about costs, for example, how do we help our clients manage costs? Because that's a huge one. Every dollar is a dollar right now, to survive. And, besides, we start with bringing our local support, like we're here on island, we're here in Hawai'i alongside you. We understand what you're going through. I mentioned having sort of the one-on-one strategic conversations, trying to understand priorities and challenges to make sure that we're leveraging and supporting our businesses in the best way we can. One of the things that we're talking a lot about is really cost containment strategies. So, where with cost being, it's so important to manage right now, how do we, we're working with our businesses to make sure, for example, even on the workers' compensation, employee safety side, we want to work proactively with clients to help them minimize claims, to make sure that they're operating safely so that they're not incurring costs through workplace safety issues and increased insurance costs. We want to help prevent that, or we're working a lot with them on staffing consultations, business structuring, like how are you accomplishing tasks in your business? Are there ways to look at how staff are doing roles? Can you repurpose roles, restructure roles, expand duties, think differently about how your employees are accomplishing the day-to-day to try and be more efficient in terms of your resources. Those are just a couple of the examples that I think, and there are many more, that we could talk about.
I'm sure, and I think that I think that it is such a great thing that you are giving them that one-on-one time, taking that time to do the analysis, help them look at these issues, because they're so busy running on top of these challenges. They're so busy trying to run and keep the business alive and afloat, that it sometimes takes someone else to be able to say, let's just take let's just brainstorm for a few minutes here and just talk. Let's break some of these things open just a little bit to see if there is a way to kind of manipulate it. And also looking at new technologies. I mean, I'm sure, as you said, there's many other things. As we look at production and challenges and solutions and time spent on accounting and other things, there are so many new tools, techniques, and business owners are juggling so much. And I know you're seeing what we're seeing. I mean, we, as you point out, we are so heavily dependent on the visitor economy, and we are down. And the bottom line is we are down. Businesses are hurting. We also have, in some cases, entrepreneurs have been doing this for a really long time. They're like, hey, I survived the Great Recession. I've survived COVID, and if things don't turn up quickly, because with where we are, in our recovery after the wildfires, we're teetering on what we're going to do, whether we stay open and continue to make more investments that, go into more debt. By investment, I mean not investing from reserves. I'm talking about people accumulating more debt, not knowing how they'll repay it, to try and keep the business afloat and the jobs available. It's tough. It's really tough.
It is. And, as I mentioned earlier, I think the resiliency and the strength really of our local business community, I mean, it impresses me every day, but I know that it takes its toll. And to your point, those are the questions. The day-to-day is busy. There's no question. People are having to wear, multiple hats because they're trying to figure out, how do I manage this differently? When I was just talking earlier about, managing one of the big challenges right now, which is, have been increased costs, but our revenue opportunities are down because we just aren't seeing the business that we need to be seeing. And even if you're not a business that's directly related to tourism, if I'm working at one of the hotels and I'm not, getting as many hours, then I might not be spending as much in the community. So I might not be going to the auto parts store to buy, to fix my car. I might put that off a little while. So we have to think and help businesses within the craziness of the day-to-day, in terms of how can we, help you make those decisions, because, you mentioned being at a bit of a tipping point, or like a really important point. What do I do at this point? Do I double down? Most businesses that I'm talking to, I feel like, yes, there are questions, but everyone feels like, no, it is going to be okay. It's just, what do I need to try and get there? And so when I'm trying to have those conversations, I'm trying to focus on what can we control. And so one of the things that I focus on is how can we
close the session. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing that with us, Marianne. We so appreciate you and the work Proservice is doing. And we're just, unfortunately, at the end of time, and on radio, you have to move on to the next program. So, but thank you for joining us and sharing that information, and I really appreciate the conversation. You're right on with what you're doing. So for those who are experiencing those kinds of challenges, know that Proservice Hawaii is here to help and on island to serve you. For all who are tuning in today, thank you for joining us for Business Matters. We hope you'll tune in next Tuesday, and you can listen again this Friday at noon. So mahalo nui loa for being a part of the show, and we look forward to having you again next week. Ahui.